Hey, what's going on, internet? Xiagax here with another story time here, and I am doing a lot of spitting, and I'm also going to need to go to the emergency room here because I broke my leg. I'm kidding. No, I really didn't. Anyhow, I want to take this time to talk about my experience with being on the spectrum, because I think it's something that would really it would be helpful for people to learn about. A couple of things I would like to let people know about the spectrum of what it is not. It is not mental retardation. It is not somebody who is incapable of, having a decent conversation, somebody who's incapable of thinking, or necessarily somebody who is incapable of taking care of themselves. They're not stupid. There are, of course, more severe cases where there are people who can't take care of themselves, but again, I don't believe they're stupid. They just have an inability to properly speak to people. Number two, being on the spectrum does not make me a super genius. I might have a bit more knowledge in a particular subject, but that's because I've been particularly fixated on it, and I've learned it just like everyone else, just at maybe a different speed or something. But that's something I really blame Hollywood for, because it seems like every time there's somebody who has some kind of mental disability, they're somehow a savant. That's not always true. I am not a supercomputer. I mean, honestly, if you just throw math problems in front of me, I'm going to tell you just get the fuck out of my face. I don't even like math. Number three, I actually have increased sensations. That's not to say that it's always cranked up to 11 for me. No, not necessarily, but it can be. So for instance, the sensations aren't just limited to physical. It can also be mental. It can also be emotional. And I would imagine emotional and mental are pretty closely tied together. But for instance, when I go out for a run, I'm gonna get winded a little bit quicker because the fatigue, that I feel is gonna be a little bit stronger than what you might feel, depending upon how well conditioned I am. I haven't been out for a run for a long time, and I'm probably not as well conditioned as I should be. In addition to that, this was definitely a problem when I was a lot younger, because I had no concept of emotional control. Again, stuff could get turned up to 11, but I could just have a really short fuse, and I would get really pissed about stuff. On the flip side, that can also be a really good thing, because I know something I have really strived for the past couple of years is I want to have somebody I can share my life with, something that I think would be really beneficial. So on the flip side of that, I know that in addition to that, my capacity for love is definitely, well, one, it's there, because I know that should be something I should probably put in an addendum to this, but I do have the capacity to feel love, romantic love. I think there's a lot of people who seem to think that people on the spectrum, they don't have the empathy to feel love. That's not true for me. I do. In fact, I have quite a lot of times. There was a lot of girls I had crushes on going through school. The good news is though, when that does happen, and yes, when, because I am confident that it will happen, it just might take a little bit longer than most other people. But yes, when that does happen, once I can crank it up to 11, it will be extremely satisfying, because I don't have to hold back anymore. I guess that's just the game of love. But either way, growing up, I was born with it, and I don't care what all those Karens say. It was not the vaccines. Vaccines do not cause autism. So shut the hell up, Karen. So yeah, like I said, it is something that you are born with, and the severity can vary. But the other thing is, I would also really hope it is not something that is impossible to live with. I think a lot of idiots out there, Karens, they seem to think that a kid having autism or being on spectrum somewhere is worse than death. It's not. It's way better. It is way better than death. I mean, they have a chance to live. I mean, sure, there will need to be strides taken to help them cope with life and to hopefully not spray it. I'm having a really hard time not spraying it here instead of just saying it. But I mean, there will be things that will be needed to help cope with life. I mean, something that really helps for me, I actually have a stress ball And that's what I actually made while I was at Lake Area. It's helpful. It's helpful to do that. I also know that other things that I do, I have some quirky things. You don't see this on camera, but oftentimes, like, in between, like, watching Netflix or something, or maybe in between episodes, I might get around and just walk around the house, because it's like a little bit of pent-up energy. And again, because I feel that a little bit more strongly than most people, I need to kind of get that out of the way. And it's not enough energy I need to go jump on a treadmill for, but it's also not so little that I can just kind of keep it wrapped up. So I'll just walk around the house. And sometimes I don't even realize I'm doing it, but I mean, it's helpful. It also helps me kind of focus on something. Maybe I'm thinking about something I need to do, and I just kind of need to take a break from that thing. So yeah, I mean, growing up, being on the spectrum, I mean, it was, of course, tough. School life was never fun because I was always that weird kid. I mean, now, I wasn't so weird that I would be outright talking to myself, like, in front of people, like nobody else was there. But I guess, like, I just had, like, I was just weird. I was just plain weird. And, of course, kids can be little fucking little demons when there's something that, like, they don't understand. They gotta make fun of them. Or whatever it might be. And that's what happened. A lot. Yeah, I got picked on. I got teased. One thing that was not particularly fun when I was a lot younger was because something else about being on the spectrum is having a fixation. And mine would be, I mean, you know, at a young age, I mean, mine would just be going out for recess, and I would just be so consumed by that, I would forget about certain bodily needs. That also being paired up with, I mean, a underdeveloped bladder, that is a recipe for disaster. Yeah, I was that kid. I had a lot of accidents as a kid. Eventually, though, I think it was around like, it was like maybe about a year or two later that like resolves itself. I mean, and that happens. It's not like that's actually a lot more common than you think. There are kids whose bladders don't develop as quickly as they should at a young age, but eventually it catches up. So that stops becoming a problem. Also, in addition to that, holy crap, my temper would get me in a lot of trouble. Again, being able to feel sensations much stronger than other people. You know, I could get angry about something at like the drop of a hat, and kids knew it. And they thought it was so fucking funny. I hope all those little bastards rot in hell. Can't wait to see you all burn in hell. I think probably also the worst time for me dealing with my disability was when I was a sophomore and junior in high school, because that's when I was really introduced to politics. It wasn't something I was particularly drawn to. It was something I was kind of forced into, because everybody was an armchair politician, their parents and their kids. Because where did I live? I lived in Arizona, at least the southern area of Arizona. A little bit of pretense before I talk about that. Like after about 7th grade, that's when my family started moving around a lot, which was also tough because something else I probably forgot to mention, you know, as somebody on the spectrum, I thrive on repetition or a routine. That's not to say I can't deviate from it a little bit, but you know, I know for one, like right about now, like the past couple of weeks, I will always forget my keys. When I was back in South Dakota, I never forget my keys because I had a hook on it. I could see where my keys were at, so whenever I'd leave, I'd take my keys with me and I'd never forget them. Now, because it is a totally different setup here, I will forget my keys constantly, and that is something that can be frustrating. So yeah, routine is something that is very, very beneficial to me. Things are constantly changing. It gets really stressful to me. And so when I had to constantly keep moving from one school to the next every year, man, did that get old really quickly. But anyhow, moving on to Arizona, where everything was political. You know, I lived in, like I said, the southern portion where there was a huge Latino community. It was about like half an hour away from Phoenix, and I didn't like it. The heat wasn't what bothered me at all. It is super dry down there. So 100-degree weather doesn't feel that bad. Just don't stay in the sun too long or you're going to get sunburned. I mean, like I said, everyone was an armchair politician and everyone was just like angry about everything. And of course, that's all I would hear about in school. And of course, I'd have my opinions, which were vastly different from a lot of the kids down there. And they really didn't like it. And guess what? I actually experienced racism. And for all of you buttheads out there that want to tell me that a white person can't experience racism, fucking go to hell. because you're just being ignorant. You're being willfully ignorant. I don't care where you come from. Anybody can be racist to anyone. That is a load of crap saying that minorities can't be racist. That is a load of shit, and you know it. I know I experienced it firsthand because of the opinions that I held. There were actually people that were just like telling me, go back to where you came from. You don't belong here. There were actually people that, I'm not even kidding. I was like this close to getting into some fights like that were not initiated by me. Because of the color of my skin. And again, this was not helped by my disability because, one, I would have a problem with oversharing stuff. Two, I could get set off by something by the drop of a hat. Three, once again, I would overshare, and I think that's also really closely related to just not being able to shut my mouth. Something else that I don't know if this is just a personality trait or if it's attributed to my condition, is that I just have a strong sense of justice. When I see something wrong happen, I'm usually not satisfied until I see something, correct it. I don't know if that's personality trait or that's something being attributed to having Asperger's or something. Eventually, though, after my senior and junior year, those are the only 2 years I had to spend in Arizona, and I'm so glad I'm not there anymore. I came back to the Midwest. Things were a lot better, but the bullying was also a lot less. But when it did happen, it was also a lot more malicious because I think people in growing up, they realized that they could get away with more stuff. One such scenario, and this is where I felt like I was totally taken advantage of. I had an after-school job that I worked at Sonic, and one of my managers was also one of my classmates in my senior class. There was also a vending machine that everybody would line up for just before class to get their snacks, and something I thought would be funny was to just bump my manager in the head with a textbook. It was a bump. It was gentle. It was just farting around, just generally being a teenager. She looked at me, not particularly bothered, and then just looked away. Little did I realize I had set something off in her that just totally just pissed her off. I didn't realize that at the time, and I wouldn't realize the full gravity of the situation until about a week later. Because a week later, one of my coworkers basically stopped me in the parking lot when I was leaving work. He told me that he was supposed to beat the shit out of me for supposedly hitting somebody else. I knew exactly who he was talking about. What I found out had happened was that my manager had told her boyfriend, whom was out of high school, this is a weird situation. She had told her boyfriend what happened and claimed she was assaulted. He then went and told this coworker of ours, this mutual coworker, and then he told him, yeah, you need to beat him up. Like, I don't get what it was. I mean, this was also in like backwoods Missouri, so I don't realize that that people understood, like, you can't just go and threaten somebody. But yeah, anyhow, so yeah, I was basically made to feel unwelcome at work and also physically threatened. So literally the next day I went and told the principal and the school resource officer, and I said, hey, this is what happened at work. I feel like this is something to do with, and it's something connected to school. Like, I don't feel safe. So sure enough, the principal brings in my manager, my classmate, and sits her down and tells her, hey, you can't be telling your boyfriend to do stuff that happens at school, and he can't be threatening people. Well, sure enough, this pissed them off both because she decided to take it back to work and then claim she was assaulted, and I had no say or any possible way to defend myself. And not only that, the job was really crap, so fine, whatever, fire me, I don't care. And unfortunately, this would be something that would be all too common because when you work with teenage girls, they seem to have almost kind of a similar problem with managing their emotions. But that's just being a female. That's just being a woman. Like, they don't handle emotions as well as men. That's a fact. Either way, and like, I know there's actually another job that I only had for 10 days. No thanks to some stupid little twat who tried to pretend that I called her a bitch only 10 days into the job. And I was super pissed off because not only that, once again, I was not able to defend myself. You know what? I honestly don't see too many people jumping up and looking to step in and help person who's on the spectrum. No, because we have to believe all women, right? And I would say probably one of the last things that really pissed me off about being on the spectrum was when I was actually going to college for the first time. I had talked about this in my college experiences, but I will say it again, and this is something that really had bugged me for a long time. But when there was a project that I needed to get done, and for whatever reason, it was, you know, the dimensions of the project that we were working on. It was a project we were working on with Mapboard, and for whatever reason, the professor like gave out like a cryptic answer about what the dimensions were supposed to be. I had somehow missed that, and when I went to go ask people like, "Hey, what are the dimensions of the project?" It's not like I was asking them what the project, or I wasn't like asking them to do my project for me. I was just asking them for dimensions. Holy crap! How do I mess that up? And I don't know what it was. I think it was just being like the quiet guy that, like, because I wasn't charismatic or something. That's where like people were just like, they didn't have a compulsion, or they didn't feel they didn't feel it necessary to help me. No, you want to leave the weirdo to his own devices. And I ended up having that project late because nobody would tell me, and instead their only response was to snarkily respond, "You should have wrote it down." Man. But again, like I said, it's not all bad. Again, I know that there are things that I have to manage, but I think there is some good that comes out of it. Again, being on the spectrum, I have fixations on stuff that allows me to be, a little bit better at stuff. Like, I know I'm probably like the best gamer out of my family. Like, when it comes to skill. Now, when it comes to grinding, that would be my younger brother, because he's got literally nothing but time. When it comes to actually being skillful and like all around stuff, that would be me, because I learned how to do that. And also, like I said, when it'll come to relationships, I know that I will be, I can just be a very loving person, because I know that I'm going to be able to dial that up to 11. I can't do that right away. I know I got to dial that back to 1, and then we can kind of gradually turn that back up. But I know also, like, having, in addition to having a routine, I know I won't be able to cheat. I just won't be able to. I won't even have the capacity to cheat on a woman. That's just how, I mean, I will have that kind of devotion, as well as I will want to always go to the same person, for love. I'm not the kind of person that will want to just pick up chicks left and right. That is not me at all. I think that's really all I have right about now to talk about this. I might elaborate this on a little bit more, but overall, this is a pretty general overview of my experience with Asperger's. I know this wasn't something that I kind of held off on talking about for a while, because I know, like, some people don't want to talk about it because they're afraid of getting made fun of in their comment section, but whatever. But yeah, I might elaborate on this further about other stuff specifically. But otherwise, yeah, I hope you guys are having an awesome day, and I would like to thank you very much for watching, and may God bless you all. See you in the next one.